Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, otherwise known as TABS, in my opinion, is one of, if not the best, army building games out there. And here's why. Hello everyone, my name is EthanLiberty, and welcome to my first ever game review video. I told y'all there was going to be a second part to my channel. Well, here it is. For my very first ever game review, we are going to be looking at the game TABS, Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. In this game review, I'm going to be reviewing the story, or lack thereof, the mechanics, the graphics, the sound design, and more of the game. I'll also be showcasing my favorite and least favorite aspects of the game. In the end, I'm going to give it a final rating, and I'm going to place it somewhere on the EthanLiberty tier list, which I will explain when we get to that point. As always, all opinions are my own based on my experiences with the game, specifically on this channel. I might miss some things, or overlook some things, or even think that something's better than it actually is. This is where you guys come in. If you have any opinions that you would like to share with me or with the audience, please feel free to do so down in the comments below. I genuinely really like hearing what you guys have to say. So without further ado and wasting no more time, let's get into the game review. TABS is a wonky physics-based game where the objective is simple: concoct an army capable of defeating your opponent, which is very typically the Blue Army. It was made by the developer Landfall Games all the way back in 2016. The first beta version was released in July of 2016, and it has only gone on to grow and develop from there. Since its beta in 2016, TABS has undergone massive overhauls, updates, and improvements. It is almost entirely a different game than it was back in 2016, and it's most noticeable when you watch older playthroughs of the game from famous YouTubers like Jacksepticeye.
Okay, let's do this. Cannons, can you just stop, aim, and fire? Nice!
And Markiplier.
Get him! Get him, boys! Death! Wow, that is actually pretty cool. Crotch stab for the win.
Now, Landfall Studios has said on numerous occasions that they are done changing the game. In their words, the code has become a little bit too unstable, and any changes have massive effects that they just simply don't really want to deal with anymore. And I'm not too mad about that. I think the game ended in a wonderful spot. And even though there are some maps and some units that were available before but are not now, I think Landfall Games has earned a win and should be allowed to just continue with their other projects in peace. The game can be purchased on multiple platforms, including Steam, the Epic Store, and the Microsoft Store. It can also be bought directly through the Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch. However, there are some slight differences between the computer version and the console version, console referring to Xbox and PlayStation. The changes become even more noticeable when you compare the computer version to the Switch version. However, because I bought the game on Steam and I played it through my PC, that is the version I will be reviewing. And any limitations that come from the console versions will not be included here. Normally right about now, based on how I am planning these game review videos, I would be giving you guys a spoiler warning and letting you guys know what timestamp in the video would be okay for you to come back so that no massive or major story elements get revealed to you maybe earlier than you want. However, in this game, there's not really a story. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some secrets, including some secret units, some secret factions perhaps, and secret maps. However, despite my showcasing them, I will not be telling you how or where you find said units. Because honestly, in my opinion, finding them on your own is a lot of fun. And if you guys want to look up where those are and how to get them, you're free to do so. But I won't be talking about it here. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator has 3 game modes: Campaign, the Sandbox, and Multiplayer. However, I can't really speak to the multiplayer version of the game because it was pretty much dead when I tried it. So in this video, I'm going to be focusing on the campaign and the sandbox. The full game has 12 campaigns, 3 of which you actually need to unlock in order to play. Each campaign is totally unique, presenting different challenges and types of foes that you have to face. However, like I said before, the objective is fairly simple. You're presented with a blue army that you have to defeat. You're given a selection of units to pick from, make an army, and win the battle. You have 2 constraints while you are making your army. The first of the 2 is the budget. You're given a certain amount of, well, let's call it gold, and you cannot spend more than you are being given. Every unit costs a different amount of gold, typically based on the unit's overall power. The second constraint is the units you have available to you. Factions are groups of units based on an overall theme or time period. There are 14 total factions in the game, 4 of which you have to unlock before you can use them. Now, I do advise you do this as quickly as you can because these are super special and really powerful factions. You are introduced to the first 5 factions in what is very fittingly called the Introduction Campaign. This is where you'll learn the most important parts of the game, including unit selection, unit placement, and unit possession. The game introduces you to the first 5 factions by pitting you against them, and every battle just gets a little bit more difficult. The first faction that you will meet is called the Tribal Faction. It has the following units: the Clubber, the Protector, the Spear Thrower, the Stoner, the Bone Mage, the Chieftain, and the Mammoth. The second faction is the Farmer Faction. It has the Halfling, the Farmer, the Hay Baler, the Potion Seller, the Harvester, the Wheelbarrow, and the Scarecrow. The third faction are the medieval units. You have the Bard, the Squire, the Archer, the Healer, the Knight, the Catapult, and the King. The second to last faction you'll face are the Ancient units. The Shield Bearer, the Sarissa, the Hoplite, the Snake Archer, the Ballista, the Minotaur, and Zeus will be found here. And last, but definitely the most challenging faction you'll face are the Vikings. This faction includes the Headbutter, the Ice Archer, the Brawler, the Berserker, the Valkyrie, the Longship, and the Jarl. In the intro campaign, you will be using the faction that the Blue Army used previously, which means for the first battle, it's Tribal v Tribal. In the second battle, it's going to be you using Tribal versus them using Farmer. So you'll use Tribal twice. This also means that you don't get a chance to use the Viking faction, but you'll be able to use it in all future campaigns. Above everything else, this is the time to get really familiar with different strategies, placing units in ways that might seem a little weird or wonky, because this is a weird and wonky game. As you progress further in the game, you're going to start finding some absolutely amazing combinations of factions and units, including some that are a little bit more secret and that you have to just really find via testing because there's no way to really see that there's a good combination there. With how much is in the game and all of the possible combinations, it's very worth it to test things out. Some units are super circumstantial and a lot of times not that useful, and others are simply too expensive to actually be used in campaigns, but they are super fun nonetheless. I mentioned that there are 4 factions that need to be unlocked before you can use them. They are called the Good, the Evil, the Secret, and the Legacy factions. These 4 factions have some of the most powerful and expensive units in the game. In all 12 of the campaigns, you can, with a little bit of creativity and a little bit of luck, create some absolutely chaotic battles. And that chaos only increases to an 11 when you go into the sandbox mode. The sandbox mode is where you control everything. You can pick the map you play on, and you have a very good selection to pick from. You can also change where the battle lines are and what type it is, being a straight line or a circle. You also have full control over the composition and placement of both armies and unlimited funds to do so. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator has 139 total units, so the number of combinations really never ends. There's always something else you can try. And that is one of my favorite things about this game. The fact that you can run the same battle 3, 4, 5, 6 times in a row and get different results every single time, even if they're only slightly different, is really cool to me. The game at the end of the day is super unpredictable. And in a lot of games nowadays, that's not really the case. There's typically a meta, and so long as you follow that meta, you never lose. Even the most powerful units can be felled with relatively cheap and weak ones just based on their weaknesses. In Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, army configuration and placement is 90% of the battle, but the other 10% is luck. And in a lot of cases, luck matters more than who your army's made up of and where you put them. Now, don't get me wrong, although this is one of my favorite parts of the game, it's also one of my least favorite. You can have the best army. You could have scoped out the strategies perfectly. You've placed every unit exactly where you need them, and you know you should win. And then your army walks the wrong way. Or half of them don't fight the way that they're supposed to. Or your opponent just gets that one lucky shot that ruins your fight. All of those are things that can be really frustrating. I have lost many battles to this, and it is honestly a little frustrating every single time. But victory is made even sweeter once you've tasted bitter defeat. And at the end of the day, looking back at my point A, if you know you have a stellar kick-ass army that should win, don't change it. Just run the battle again. And if the bugs still happen and the weird quirks still happen, maybe shift things just a little. A lot of times, what's causing weirdness is simply just where units are in relation to each other. It's a little strange. But then again, tabs is meant to be more silly than it is to be realistic. There is one way you can directly help your army if the changes aren't doing enough, and that's through what's called unit possession. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator has a feature which lets you take control of any unit on your side. This allows you to behave in ways that the unit might not normally behave. Most units, even ranged ones, will move in, or sometimes not retreat when an enemy is advancing. When you take control of them, you can behave pretty much however you want, although you are limited to the attacks that that specific unit has. Unit possession can be huge in changing the tides of a battle, and I know that I have also won many battles specifically because I took control of a unit, a fight that I otherwise would have lost. Another one of my favorite things about this game, and I've mentioned it before, but there really isn't an auto win button or unit. Again, even the more powerful units have weaknesses that can be exploited, and those weaknesses are oftentimes exploited by the cheaper units. With some units, their weakness is simple. They're too expensive to use in the campaigns. And in the sandbox mode, that doesn't really matter because, let's be honest, you're using sandbox mode to use those expensive units. So go ahead and put down 20 ice giants if you want. It's going to look really cool. The fact that there isn't always a guaranteed army to win means that you kind of always have to be thinking about strategy, about what units you select and where you place them. Some battles are easier than others for sure. Some factions are easier to defeat than others for sure. But if you really want to get into the nature of the game, you're going to be changing up your armies often, on the off chance that it might work, or on the off chance that it might be really funny when it doesn't. And even then, when you get through all the campaigns, you can always go through it again and just change up which units you use. I was going to attempt to complete the whole game using nothing but the tribal faction, but that was honestly just taking me a little too long, which is why it didn't turn into a YouTube series. Now, I know I said there is no automatic win button, and that's true in the campaign. However, there are 2 units that are effectively indestructible, immortal, and with damage output so high, no other unit can hope to survive them, much less even hurt them. Just know that they are so expensive, it is actually impossible to use them anywhere except sandbox. So you're never going to have to worry about going up against these units, and you're not going to have to worry about the game being boring because you just always use them. At the end of the day, you can play the game in any way you'd like. And any playstyle is going to lead to wacky, fun, silly, frustrating, and totally accurate moments. There's no wrong way to play the game, and that's honestly my favorite part about it. Now, we've talked a lot about the game's mechanics and my favorite and least favorite parts about the game. Now it's about that time we actually start breaking the game down and giving it a rating. To me, the following categories make or break games: the storyline slash narrative, the mechanics, the visual design and graphics, the audio design and music, the game's ease of understanding, and its replayability. I will go through and kind of explain what I mean by these if need be, but most of those categories are pretty self-explanatory. Starting with the story slash narrative, there's really not much to talk about here at all. For the most part, there's not really any story or lore presented within the game. There's no cutscenes, no dialogue, nothing of that nature. However, I don't think that's to this game's detriment. Not every single game has to have endless amounts of lore and storyline and history and complicated stuff behind it. Sometimes it's really nice to just have a simple game where all you have to deal with are wobbly-headed weirdos that you have to fight. I honestly think if this game did have a storyline that was intricate and complicated, it would detract from the game's otherwise really simple and friendly nature. In terms of the actual mechanics of the game, I think it's really solid. Obviously, the unpredictable nature and the little bit of loosey-goosey physics might be bothersome to some people, but I think this is a feature, not a bug. No mechanics were overcomplicated or felt out of place, because at the end of the day, once you learn what the units do, you learn how to use them. You're not going to put an archer on the front line or someone like a clubber or a knight in the back line. They're mostly simple. I think the only thing that feels missing from the game is a way to control or direct multiple units to either go to a certain location or to target a specific enemy. According to the game's wiki page, this was actually a feature at one point. It was referred to as the unit command system. This, alongside many units, features, and factions, have been removed prior to the full release of the game. Now, I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Landfall Games has confirmed that they are not making any more changes to the game. So the control all units feature thingy, that's unfortunately not going to be in the game. There's also quite a few units, factions, and maps that have been removed over the years, but I'm sure if we look online hard enough, we can probably find some mods to bring some, if not all of them, back. Now, I'm not going to speak to this too much. However, I do know that there is a unit creator within the game, and I've seen some people come up with really fun units. So I implore you guys to test it out and let me know what you think down in the comments below. The next two categories I'm going to mash together in this game, but just know in future game review videos, they're likely to be their own completely separate thing. Both the visual and the audio sound design in this game is, in my opinion, pretty much perfect. The units are all distinguishable from one another, but they're not detailed to the point of having any type of seriousness. The game remains plenty goofy because of their googly eyes, their wobbly physics, and the fact that they all are constantly speaking gibberish, which honestly kind of sounds like Minionese. The music is also great. With the themed maps, there are specific soundtracks for them, which helps draw you in to the type of battle that you're playing. Pair that with the fact that when the two armies are converging on one another, the music perfectly times the swell so that you have silly but also epic moments kind of like this. Now finally, we get to the game's ease of understanding and replayability. What I mean by ease of understanding isn't how simple the game is, but how well it conveys how to play it. Even the most complex games can be really easy to understand if the game's instructions are clear. With tabs, it's pretty dang clear. It takes less than 5 minutes to understand how the game works. You have a budget, the units cost money, select them, place them, and press play. And that's about it. Now, it is nearly impossible to become a master of controlling the chaos and unpredictable nature of the game, but at the end of the day, the fact that it doesn't require Google searches and endless Reddit forums to understand is a huge win for the game. The game has a pretty decent playthrough time when you play through the 12 campaigns, and even more playthrough time when you head over to sandbox mode. And then if you're anything like me, that playthrough time only then increases more because you're going to want to use weaker and weaker units or weird combinations to see if you really know how to play the game. With everything the game has to offer natively, I'm sure you, like me, can find hours and hours of fun time with it. And I haven't even mentioned the bug DLC. Now it is the time we have all been waiting for. We've spoken about the game a lot, but now it's time to give it a place on the official EthanLiberty tier list. Every game will receive one of the following scores: favorite, amazing, great, good, decent, bad, or didn't finish. Only the best and worst tiers have special rules. I can only ever have 3 max games in the favorite tier. If a new favorite comes along and a game gets demoted, it will have a previously favorite stamp on the tier list. All games I did not finish will have the playtime on it to show how long I played it. All things considered, honestly, including all of the wonderful memories I made playing this game during college, which have stood the test of time, by the way, all of the clear love and affection that Landfall Games gave tabs, all of the awesome features, units, factions, maps, and music, all of the special secrets that you can find in the game, and the community, which, from what I've seen, is pretty nice in general, this game clearly is amazing. This is such an endearing game, one that has given me a lot of joy. I honestly think it's really worth it. I believe Landfall deserves all the love and attention that they've gotten from making this game. And although I will never tell you guys to spend your money, I do think if you are considering getting the game that you really should. I do truly believe that this is the best battle simulator out there on the market. And the best thing is, it's totally accurate. Thank you everybody so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and let me know. And if you're interested in seeing my tabs playthrough, go ahead and click right here to be brought to the playlist. Let me know if you guys want to see more tabs content. I'm happy to pick it up a little bit more. I hope all of you guys have an amazing rest of your day. Remember, you are loved, you are worth it. There's always a place here for you in EthanLiberty channel. And I'm going to see you guys very soon in the next video. Have a good one, guys.